The room was small, and the walls breathed like a sleeping beast as Jordan Hale knelt by the candle. Jordan said, "If anyone hears me, speak or let me sleep." The air turned metallic, and the flame leaned, thin as a needle. The floor trembled like a drum in a distant parade. Shadows climbed the walls, walking the wrong way. Jordan said, "I am not afraid," and tasted the lie. The wick erupted into cold white fire that did not warm. A towering silhouette grew where no footsteps sounded. Gabriel said, "You have been seen." The words pressed through ribs and left a mark that burned without smoke. Jordan said, "Then do not turn away," and the light answered with a hush. Morning came gray, and Jordan packed the candle into a drawer like a secret he feared and needed. Jordan said it was real, and the words shook. The apartment smelled of cold wax and iron. A knock echoed from the hallway and never arrived. Jordan said, "I am not chasing voices," yet he checked the door twice. The mirror showed a face that had not slept. Jordan said, "Give me a sign I can carry," and the room gave him silence. He scribbled a date in a notebook and drew a thin circle around it. The circle looked like a bruise on the page. The church steps were wet with last night's frost, and Reverend Miriam Cole waited with a paper cup that steamed. Reverend Cole said, "You look hunted." Jordan said, "Only by what I asked for." Bells tolled without joy, and pigeons scattered. Reverend Cole said, "Tell me plainly." Jordan sketched the night and left out the terror. Reverend Cole said, "Not sharing the fear is how it grows." Jordan said, "Then teach me how to speak to it." The bell's echo hung like a held breath. Dr. Evan Brooks listened in an office lined with diplomas and a clock that clicked too loud. Dr. Brooks said, "Sleep debt breeds visions." Jordan said, "This one branded me." The clock ticked like a hammer on a nail. Dr. Brooks said, "Meaning is a lens we grind ourselves." Jordan said, "Then why did the light know my name?" The window caught a pale sun and threw it back dull. Dr. Brooks said, "Test it. Seek the mundane first." Jordan said, "I will, and if the mundane breaks, I will still be here." In the basement hall of a community center, folding chairs formed a crooked circle. Lila Monroe said, "Some nights I asked for a sign and prayed it would not come." Jordan said, "I asked and it came like a blade of light." Coffee smelled burnt, and a clock hummed. Lila said, "Grace can cut before it heals." Jordan said, "What do I do with the wound?" Lila said, "Name it where someone can hear you." The hum grew louder until silence returned like rain stopping. The night returned heavy, and Jordan sat at his desk, staring at the candle in its drawer. Jordan said, "If it speaks again, I will listen. If it stays silent, I will go mad." The city beyond his window breathed with sirens and engines. Jordan's hand shook as he wrote a line, "Seen but not known." He circled it twice until the paper tore. Reverend Miriam's words clung to his memory, "Silence lets it grow." He said, "Then let it wither or consume me." The drawer rattled though no wind touched it. Jordan froze, and the air thickened like water. He whispered, "What do you want from me?" But only the scratching clock answered. At dawn, Reverend Miriam walked with Jordan through a cemetery dusted with frost. Reverend Miriam said, "The dead do not stay silent, they echo in us." Jordan said, "Then I am full of echoes." Their breaths mingled in the cold. A crow lifted from a stone angel, its wings scattering frost. Reverend Miriam said, "The echo may not be punishment, but calling." Jordan said, "A calling feels like chains." Reverend Miriam touched a weathered cross. She said, "Sometimes chains are only what we fear to carry." Jordan turned away, whispering, "Fear is all I have left." Dr. Brooks leaned back in his chair, flipping through Jordan's notebook. Dr. Brooks said, "You're giving meaning to static." Jordan said, "The static breathes." The office clock ticked louder than reason. Dr. Brooks said, "Sleep deprivation and guilt create ghosts." Jordan said, "Then why does the ghost write back?" Brooks tapped his pen against the margin. He said, "Because your hand obeys fear." Jordan leaned forward, whispering, "But what if fear obeys something greater?" Brooks looked at him, and for one brief instant, doubt flickered in the doctor's eyes. In the community center basement, Lila Monroe spoke to Jordan as the group shuffled away. Lila said, "I once heard a voice in my chest so loud, it left no sound outside." Jordan said, "Did you answer it?" Lila said, "I tried. I ran first. Then I begged for silence." Jordan said, "And did it leave?" Lila said, "No. It grew quieter only when I stopped running." Jordan's eyes burned. He whispered, "What if mine grows louder?" Lila said, "Then maybe it means you were never meant to hide." That night, Jordan dreamed of the silhouette again, taller, brighter, edges sharp as blades. The hollow lingered at the room's corners, whispering doubts. Jordan said, "Tell me which of you I belong to." The silver form stretched arms wide, silent. The darkness hissed, "To me, always." Jordan felt pulled apart, every bone caught between light and void. He screamed, "Choose me or leave me," and woke with his chest burning, the scent of smoke in the air. The candle on the drawer's edge had lit itself. Jordan stood at the library, his hands resting on books about visions and hallucinations. Dr. Brooks' words echoed, "Ghosts born of exhaustion." Jordan said, "If this is madness, it feels more ordered than sanity." Dust hung in shafts of light, stirred by his restless movements. He ran his fingers over ancient bindings, hoping to touch something eternal. Reverend Miriam's reminder whispered, "Not all chains are meant to be broken." He muttered, "Then perhaps mine is a crown of ash." Page turned by itself, landing on a passage about voices that speak without sound. Jordan froze, whispering, "You are following me even here." Reverend Miriam met Jordan in the church nave, its stained glass casting fractured light. Reverend Miriam said, "What hunts you may not be a curse but a summons." Jordan whispered, "Then why does it feel like drowning?" The colors bled across the stone floor, painting his face with holy fire. Reverend Miriam said, "Fear and calling often wear the same mask." Jordan said, "If I answer, I might vanish." She pressed a hand over his, steady and firm. She said, "If you vanish, it will be into the truth you have always run from." Jordan closed his eyes, trembling between dread and longing. Dr. Brooks sat across from Jordan in a cafe crowded with voices, steam rising from cups. Dr. Brooks said, "You are feeding the delusion by listening to it." Jordan said, "And yet silence only makes it louder." The clatter of dishes underscored the tension. Dr. Brooks leaned forward, saying, "You've built a cathedral inside your fear." Jordan whispered, "Or maybe a cathedral has chosen me." Dr. Brooks sighed, rubbing his temple. For a flicker of a moment, the lights above them dimmed though no one else noticed. Jordan saw it, and his heart pounded. He whispered, "Tell me that was static too." Lila Monroe sat beside Jordan on a park bench beneath barren winter trees. Lila said, "I lived half my life pretending the voice wasn't real." Jordan said, "And what did it cost you?" Lila said, "Everything, until I named it." The frost cracked under distant footsteps, the park empty but for them. Jordan said, "What if naming it gives it power?" Lila replied, "It already has power, naming it gives you choice." A crow landed on the bench's armrest, staring with glassy eyes. Jordan whispered, "I fear I will name it wrong." Lila's breath clouded as she said, "Then let someone witness the naming." That night Jordan's dream returned, sharper, crueler. The hollow filled his room like smoke, whispering, "They will never believe you." Gabriel appeared, silver outline blazing brighter. Jordan shouted, "Choose me or let me rot." Gabriel's silence roared louder than thunder. The hollow said, "You are mine by blood of fear." Jordan fell to his knees, shaking, torn between their gravity. He said, "If I must belong, let it be to truth." The white fire surged, burning the edges of the dream. Jordan woke, gasping, his pillow damp with sweat, a faint scent of smoke lingering. Jordan sat in the community hall, lights buzzing faintly overhead. Lila's voice trembled as she confessed to the group, Once I hid a truth so heavy it nearly killed me. Jordan whispered, "What truth?" Lila said, "I was there when someone I loved was destroyed by silence, and I did nothing." Jordan froze as her words struck a hidden nerve. He remembered the accident, the night he failed to speak. He said, "You carry the same wound I do." The revelation pulled them closer, bound by a guilt neither had shared before. Reverend Miriam lit a candle in the church's side chapel, its flame soft against the marble. She said, "Confession links us more than sin divides us." Jordan whispered, "Then why does silence bind us stronger?" Miriam said, "Because silence is the enemy's language." Jordan trembled, realizing the hollow's voice had always been silence turned inward. Miriam pressed the candle into his hands and said, "Then carry light where shadows wait." Jordan nodded, eyes wet, as the flame reflected in the stained glass above. Dr. Brooks studied Jordan's face as he recounted Lila's confession. Dr. Brooks said, "Coincidence binds desperate minds together." Jordan said, "Or perhaps truth has been waiting to converge." The doctor frowned, but his hands shook slightly as he adjusted his glasses. Jordan leaned forward, whispering, "Last night the silence spoke, and it used my guilt like a key." Brooks said, "That is your subconscious breaking under strain." But doubt had seated itself in his tone. Jordan saw it, and said, "Even you hear the crack in your logic now." Jordan dreamed of the accident again, but this time Gabriel stood at the edge of the wreckage. Gabriel's outline blazed with silver fire as he said nothing. The hollow whispered, "You left them in silence, and silence is mine." Jordan screamed, "I should have spoken, I should have saved them." The wreckage burned white, brighter than any dream before. Gabriel lifted a hand, revealing not judgment but sorrow. Jordan fell to his knees, broken by the memory he had buried. In the empty church, Jordan stood before Reverend Miriam and Lila. He said, "I was there. I saw the accident. I kept silent, and silence killed more than the crash." Lila's tears fell as she whispered, "Then we were bound by the same sin." Reverend Miriam said, "Then be bound by the same confession." Jordan placed the candle on the altar, the flame steady at last. He said, "If silence was my prison, then truth will be my release." The chapel filled with a stillness, not of fear, but of peace. The candlelight in the chapel flickered, though no wind stirred. Jordan stared at the altar, hearing whispers overlap. Some tender, some cruel. Gabriel's outline appeared once more, radiating stillness. Jordan said, "Tell me your name." Silence pressed heavy until a low hum filled the chamber. Gabriel's voice resonated not from the air, but from Jordan's chest. Gabriel said, "I am the witness and the reminder." Jordan whispered, "Then you are the one who won't let me forget." The hollow's hiss crept from the shadows, or the one who keeps you chained. Jordan's breath shuddered, torn between the two voices. Reverend Miriam met Jordan in the rectory garden at dawn, mist clinging to roses. Miriam said, "What did he call himself?" Jordan whispered, "Witness, reminder." Miriam frowned. She said, "Then you are chosen to carry memory that is not only yours." Jordan said, "It burns too deeply." Miriam replied, "Memory is meant to burn. It brands us so we cannot deny truth." Jordan's hands shook as he said, "Then I am branded twice, once by silence, once by fire." Miriam placed her hand on his shoulder, saying, "Then your redemption will not be private. It will be seen." Dr. Brooks listened with arms folded, voice sharp. Dr. Brooks said, "You've given the hallucination a name. Now it owns you." Jordan snapped, "No, it revealed what silence hid." Brooks leaned forward, voice hard. "That is the language of surrender to delusion." Jordan slammed the notebook shut. He said, "If it is delusion, then why do you tremble each time the lights flicker?" Brooks hesitated, glancing at the ceiling bulb. For the first time he had no reply. Jordan's whisper cut him. Even doubt bends when truth demands it. In the community center basement, Lila confronted Jordan after hearing his confession. Lila said, if Gabriel is the witness, then he has witnessed both of us. Jordan said, then why does it feel like judgment? Lila shook her head. Witnessing is not condemning. It is reminding us to choose differently now. Jordan whispered, what if I fail again? Lila grasped his hand firmly, saying, then I will remind you until you rise. For the first time, Jordan felt the wound of silence shared, and a weight lifted. That night, Jordan prayed alone in his room, the candle burning steady. He said, Gabriel, if you are witness, then remind me until I am unafraid. The hollow whispered, reminders cannot save you. They only cut you open again. Jordan's chest ached as he pressed a hand against his heart. Gabriel's voice returned, calm and resonant, you were never meant to be untouched. You were meant to be transformed. Jordan's tears fell as he whispered, then let me be remade. The flame grew taller, silver white, filling the room with silent power. The abandoned sanctuary stood silent, its roof broken and moonlight spilling through cracks. Dust swirled with every breath Jordan took. He gripped the candle like a weapon, its silver fire steady in the gloom. He whispered, if tonight ends me, let it be truth that consumes me, not silence. The hollow's laughter oozed from the shadows, curling like smoke into his ears, mocking, truth is nothing but sharpened silence. You have fed me for years. Jordan's jaw clenched, sweat cold against his brow. Behind him, Reverend Miriam and Lila entered, their footsteps echoing in the hollow nave. Miriam's voice rang out, calm but fierce, stand in the light, Jordan. Lila's whisper trembled, you are not alone anymore. The floor trembled as the silver glow of the candles swelled, spilling across cracked pews. The walls seemed to groan, as if they too felt the struggle beginning. The air itself split, dividing the sanctuary into jagged halves, one drowning in shadow, the other lit by fire that refused to die. Gabriel appeared between beams of moonlight, taller than any memory Jordan held. His figure glowed like molten silver, edges alive with energy. Gabriel said, the trial begins, not of you alone, but of all silence you carried, all voices smothered. His voice thundered inside Jordan's chest, shaking his ribs like drums. Jordan raised the candle and said, then judge me here, judge me now. The hollow hissed from every corner, no judgment, only ruin. You were mine from the first moment you bit back truth. Its voice was 1,000 whispers layered as one. Shadows uncoiled and lashed forward like black whips, striking the pews, splintering wood. Miriam raised her cross pendant, shouting, the light is not yours to devour. Waves of brightness rippled from the symbol, clashing against the dark tendrils. Lila cried out, her voice piercing through, resist the silence, Jordan. With shaking breath, Jordan stepped toward the altar, candle blazing taller. He shouted, if I am to burn, then let it burn the fear first. The hollow surged like a storm, wrapping around Jordan with suffocating force. Shadows pressed against his chest, whispering failures, his silence at the accident, his cowardice, every word unsaid. His knees buckled, candle nearly slipping from his grasp. The hollow roared, you belong to me, your silence built my throne. Jordan's breath hitched, lungs screaming for air. He cried out, voice breaking, no more silence. With trembling hands, he lifted the candle high. Its silver flame erupted upward, roaring like a living thing, searing through the choking dark. Gabriel's voice broke across the sanctuary like thunder. Light is not earned, it is chosen. Jordan's tears streamed as he screamed, then I choose light. The force of his words rippled outward, the candle flame exploding into a pillar of white fire. The hollow shrieked, its body unraveling into tattered wisps, claws retracting as it recoiled from the brightness. The fire spread like veins of lightning, racing across the cracked altar, flooding every shadowed corner. The sanctuary glowed as though dawn had broken inside its walls. Jordan's body shook violently, sweat pouring down his face, his arms rigid with strain. He said, through gritted teeth, I will not be chained by silence. Gabriel stood nearby, his radiant gaze fixed and said, Your fear is broken, but the choice remains, it always remains. The hollow staggered, a shrinking mass of smoke, clawing desperately at the stone. Lila screamed, "Hold fast, Jordan!" Her voice cracked with tears, raw and pleading. Miriam stepped forward, her voice cutting sharp. "The truth is yours, claim it now." With a guttural cry, Jordan slammed the candle against the altar. Silver fire shot through the fractures, igniting the sanctuary with blinding brilliance. The cracked stone groaned, fire flowing like rivers of light. The hollow's scream echoed once, then fractured into silence. The sanctuary shook as silence itself cracked apart, shattering like glass. Jordan's body collapsed against the stone, but the candle stood upright, still burning, brighter than ever. Ash swirled through the air like snow, filling the ruin with a strange serenity. Gabriel's voice softened to a whisper. "Trial complete. You have chosen." The hollow's voice sputtered into fragments, gasping its last. "You will, always," then vanishing, swallowed by the light. Miriam rushed forward, cradling Jordan's head in her lap, whispering, "You are not lost, you are found." Lila dropped beside them, tears streaming, sobbing, "You are free." Jordan's chest rose with shallow but steady breaths. He whispered weakly, "Then let this light belong not to me, but to all who carry silence." Gabriel's form began to fade, watching with serene pride. The sanctuary settled into stillness, no longer a battlefield, but a holy place reborn. Ash drifted like a gentle snowfall, and the silver fire dimmed into peace. The sanctuary lay in silence, silver light fading into a gentle warmth. Jordan rose slowly, candle in hand, its flame no longer fierce but steady, alive like a heartbeat. Reverend Miriam stood near, her face soft with relief. She said, "The silence has broken." Jordan whispered, "It broke because it was mine, and I confessed it." Ash drifted from the rafters like snow, landing on Lila's hair as she wept quietly, not from grief but release. She said, "We were chained by the same wound, now we are bound by the same truth." Jordan touched her shoulder, nodding. "Then let us never carry it alone again." From the shadows where the hollow once lingered, nothing remained but stillness, clean and emptied. Gabriel appeared faint, his light gentle now, like the last star before dawn. Gabriel said, "You were seen, and you answered. That is enough." Jordan whispered, "And yet it feels like the beginning." Reverend Miriam said, "Every ending worth living is a beginning worth walking." The candle flame glowed steady, and for the first time Jordan did not fear the silence. It had become peace. Outside the sanctuary, dawn painted the sky in pale fire. Jordan stepped into the open air, the candle still glowing though the wind pressed against it. Lila walked beside him whispering, "Do you feel lighter?" Jordan nodded slowly. "It feels like carrying weight that has changed shape." Reverend Miriam followed, her face softened by morning's peace. She said, "Redemption is never the removal of scars. It is their transfiguration." Jordan touched the flame with his gaze and whispered, "Then let these scars speak instead of silence." The bell of the church tower, long broken, gave a hollow echo as if stirred by unseen hands. At the cemetery, Jordan stood before the grave he had avoided for years. His hand trembled as he placed the candle on the cracked stone. He whispered, "I kept silent when I should have spoken, and silence buried me with you." Lila stood behind him, tears in her eyes, saying, "Now you've spoken. That breaks the chain." Reverend Miriam rested a hand on his shoulder, her voice steady. "The dead do not demand silence. They demand remembrance." Jordan bowed his head, feeling both grief and release. The candle's flame flickered once, then steadied, as though the grave itself accepted his words. Later, in the community hall, Jordan spoke to the circle of chairs that once felt like judgment. He said, "I was silent, and silence destroyed. Tonight I chose to speak, and light answered." Faces leaned closer, hearing the crack in his voice, but also the steadiness beneath it. Lila sat beside him, nodding with quiet pride. Reverend Miriam watched from the back, her eyes filled with calm certainty. Jordan said, "We are not freed when silence ends. We are freed when we refuse to keep it alive." The group sat hushed, and for the first time, Jordan felt the hush was not oppressive. It was listening. Night returned, but Jordan no longer feared it. He placed the candle by his window, the flame glowing steady against the dark. He whispered, "You have been seen." This time, the words did not burn. They healed. The hollow was gone, replaced by the hush of peace. Gabriel's faint outline shimmered once in the reflection of the glass, silent but present, before fading into the night. Jordan sat back, exhaling deeply. He no longer asked for silence to break, he asked only to keep speaking truth. Outside, the city moved, unaware of the battle just won, but within Jordan the war was finished. The flame flickered gently, eternal in its quiet strength.